welcome to the Wasteland. Hey everyone, I'm Sebastian from Cinemageddon Reviews. I know that yesterday was supposed to be the day we were going to have our latest episode. Unfortunately, even in the Wasteland, electricity is still in short supply. And unfortunately, even out here in the Wasteland, we still have to rely on Luma. So, in case you don't know who we are Cinemageddon Reviews, and you are currently watching us out here in a little thing that we like to call News from the Wasteland. This is our bi-weekly podcast. I've been saying it weekly for a couple of episodes by now, where we gather around the campfire to discuss our thoughts on the state of the proverbial hellscape that is pop culture. And today, I am joined by one of my compatriots as well as one of our friends who has finally decided to join us and is someone I'm very excited to introduce to all of you. But first, ladies and gentlemen, care to introduce yourselves to the world?
Hey everybody, my name is Diego from Cinemageddon Reviews. I just got done swimming in a radioactive lake to clear my head, and boy are my arm stumps tired.
Oh Jesus, not again. I couldn't have told you this the last time to not get into the radiated water.
I can't help myself, man.
Jesus, I'm surprised that your girlfriend can put up with how many arms you're growing. And now, ladies and gentlemen, you've seen her on Twitch, you've heard her on Twitch, and you also know her from her work with Wait in the Wings. Ladies and gentlemen, you know her, you love her, you can't get enough of her. Not Quite Chrome!
Hello! What is up, everybody? My name is Not Quite Chrome. You can call me Chrome, though, and welcome to News from the Wasteland. The reason why I haven't really been able to be on here is because I'm part of a caravan, y'all. You know what? Traveling takes a lot of time, and I finally got to, stop by my friends here. So, that's a terrible thing to hear about with that radiation there, bud. I hope you're okay.
Yeah,
I'll survive.
She's been chilling in New Vegas this entire time, but now she decided to join us.
It's true. The Crimson Caravan, they're really struggling out here, and listen, I just needed some time away from the boomers, honestly. But New Vegas is wonderful, so you really can't get enough of it. So anyway, thanks so much for having me, Seb. I appreciate it.
Not a problem, and I'm glad you're here as well. It's such a shame that we're here to talk about the subject of today's video, which I didn't even have an idea for this particular episode until somebody's girlfriend thought it was a good idea for us to basically rage. Just pure, unadulterated rage. Because apparently, we have a couple of opinions on certain characters that we just absolutely cannot stand in the slightest. I have a couple of suggestions, Diego has a couple of suggestions, and I'm sure our guest here also has a couple of suggestions. Today, we're talking about our most hated characters ever, according to us. So, who would like to join us and would like to go first in talking about what their most hated character is? Or at least what one of their most hated characters is?
That's
go
all
first. You, Diego. Yep.
Yeah.
There you go.
Yes. Big surprise, right? Okay. So, the first pick I have tonight is Claude Frollo from The Hunchback of Notre Dame.
Oh, that's pretty base.
Yeah. I mean, look, here's the thing. Everyone hates a racist. And everyone hates corrupt government officials. So, when you combine both, you get a character that you absolutely can't stand.
Hold on. If everybody hates racists and government officials, then how do you explain Ron DeSantis?
Ugh, don't remind me. Florida's a wasteland all on its own.
Of course. Anyway, you were saying?
Yeah, so this is Hunchback on Notre Dame is a movie that I only just saw last year. But every time Frollo was on screen, I just wanted to punch that asshole in the teeth. Because holy shit did I hate him. He acts as the main character, Quasimodo's caregiver, but that's really what he just calls himself. The truth is, Quasimodo is more his prisoner than his surrogate son. And that relationship ticks every box of being an abusive parenthood. I mean, you name it. Neglect, gaslighting, emotional manipulation. Anything you can think of, it's there. And because of Quasimodo's deformities, which it just makes him just a despicable, ableist too. Like, oh my god, like this guy is just a complete dickhead. He's also a religious extremist, which everybody also hates. He hates sinners, and because he considers himself quote unquote a man of God, he has absolutely no problem inflicting pain and suffering onto others, and then saying he's doing God's will.
A man.
He also thinks Oh my god, sorry, you were saying?
It's okay. I was just gonna say, a man of God going against God's wishes to commit his own sins. Haven't seen that before.
No, of course not. But where could you have thought of that? Uh, he thinks so. Frollo thinks he's doing God's will by cleansing the streets of Paris. Please listen to the air quotes that I'm insinuating here of the Romani people. When Esmeralda comes into the picture, he becomes attracted to her and then blames his own lust for her on Esmeralda and Satan because, this is so original. We've never seen that before. He simply refuses to acknowledge that he's as prone to sin as everybody else. And it really just, illustrates the hypocrisy behind people like him. It's his lust for Esmeralda that makes him an even more dangerous person. He goes on this obsessive tirade of trying to find her, and he even goes as far as almost killing an innocent family. I mean, you can't, I cannot express how much I hate this person, but I also, he's just such a good villain too, and that's one of the reasons why I love the Hunchback of Notre Dame so much. But that's my take. What do you guys think?
Okay, well, first of all, you haven't seen Hunchback since last year? Or rather, until last year?
No, I
Wow.
had a lot of. Yeah, I know. I was watching Nickelodeon and a whole bunch of other types of animation instead.
You're dead to me. I'm kidding.
I know.
Okay, so, I think you kind of hit the nail on the head there.
Yeah, honestly, no notes.
We're only 6 minutes in, and already you got we're only 8 minutes in, and already we got the religious asshole out in the open here. And honestly, I feel like this is probably the most morally, not so much morally, but sort of amorally complex character that I've ever seen in an animated movie, and this came from a Disney film. Like, arguably the most inappropriate Disney movie I have ever seen. Like, how the hell was this movie even allowed to be made for children?
Well, I think that so okay, to give some background, Hunchback is actually one of my favorite movies, and I think that it is such an interesting flick because exactly like you said, Seb, it's incredibly nuanced, dark, and it has a raised intelligence level, I think, than a lot of other Disney movies at the time, and I personally think that it was something that was so groundbreaking but a bit ahead of its time. Personally, I think that uh, it was kind of in the same scope as Treasure Planet or Atlantis, where they didn't necessarily get the correct audience immediately and are now seeing a resurgence because a lot of those kids that when that movie was released were kids are now older and are able to understand these movies. I think that there's a much bigger audience for it now. And also, I will say in the defense of kids media, I think that people don't give kids enough credit. I think that there's a lot of kids who can process these things and unfortunately can even understand and relate to these kinds of situations. Obviously, we would hope not, but in a lot of ways, that's something that they can find catharsis in. It's really an interesting idea behind that. And obviously, it doesn't mean that it's not dark. It doesn't mean that it's not inappropriate in some ways. But I do think that with the media that they were given, because the book, while I haven't read it, the book is a lot darker. The book is a lot worse than what was portrayed in the movie. However, I think that what they did with what they were given, I think it was quite brilliant. And yeah, and to your point, Diego, I think that Claude is a fantastic villain, and obviously you're supposed to hate his guts. He sucks, and that's a very, very, that's an understatement. But I think that that's the beauty of it, though, and I think that's going to be something that would be hopefully throughout this lovely little rage session that we have, that perhaps there might be some slight storytelling silver linings that we'll be able to find with some of these characters, because some of them are phenomenal villains and you're supposed to absolutely just want their destruction so badly. And some are just poorly written. So
Yeah, it's true.
we'll see. But that's just my 2 cents.
Foreshadowing.
Honestly, she makes such a very good point there, because as much as we can sit here and say Frollo is one of the most hated people that we've ever seen in animation, it takes a lot of strong work and effort to make the most hateable person on the planet that much more hateable. And give Judge Frollo some credit, it takes a lot of hard work to become probably the most hated human being in a Disney movie since pretty much ever. Like I don't even think I can come up with any example that can honestly be worse than Frollo. Like not even Scar after he killed Mufasa.
Yeah, Scar was gonna be my initial thing, and I said, no. No, Claude Frollo is so infinitely worse.
I know, and honestly, and the fact that we actually get to see, like, it's one of those rare cases, before Disney well, not just Disney, but everything else nowadays started doing the whole let's redeem the bad guys nonsense. Like, it works sometimes, and then at other times you're left with a Abuela Alma situation from Encanto, which I'm not gonna get into here because I'm Hispanic and that's a completely different issue. But it is so refreshing to see a horrifically despicable character like this actually get a punishment that fits the crime. Like, seeing, like, and the most ironic one, too, like, literally falling down into a pit of his own hellfire. Like, it's so poetic. I'm honestly flabbergasted that this is from a Disney film. But,
yeah.
Oh my god, I am still, like, I haven't seen this movie in years because I have literally been terrified of the imagery from this movie because I grew up Catholic. I grew up Catholic, and every time I tell myself, you know what, I'm old, I'm 29, I can do this, it can't be that bad, I'm reminded that this movie literally opens with him murdering a woman outside in the street and then taking her infant son and basically just spending the rest of his life beating him emotionally and treating him like a servant. Like, how the hell do you start off a movie like this, let alone an animated one for children? I do not know, but it took a lot of...
good.
I know! It takes a strong amount of good writing to make the most hated person in the world that compelling and that interesting. And they succeeded. Although they kind of succeeded a little too well, if you want to put it that way. But I don't think that's a knock in of the movie itself. I feel like that's honestly just a much bigger point of praise. Oh my goodness, I'm getting PTSD from watching this movie back when I was a kid. Just like everybody thinks about all the musical scenes, all the scenes where Quasimodo was singing with the fucking gargoyles, and all I could think of is, did you not hear the Ave Marias, the fucking chorus in the background, all the fire? There's so much fire in this movie. Why is everybody focusing on the gargoyles?
I know. France is burning yet again.
Jesus Christ. Oh, ironically, one of
That's too soon. I'm sorry, France.
It's a... Oh my god. It's okay. According to her, Jay, Tintin beat Neil Armstrong to the moon, so they kind of beat us to the space race. I'm not even kidding. That's an actual comic. Look it up.
Oh gosh. Okay.
Oh my goodness. So, Diego, do you have anything else that you want to add regarding our Lord and Savior?
No, you know what? I'm really satisfied. I'm glad you guys enjoyed my topic so much.
Honestly, you kind of just, you went and then you just refused to stop. Under no circumstances were you gonna stop ranting. And I was just
I had to vent, man. I had to vent.
No, we were not gonna stop you, and neither one of us had the balls to say stop for a second.
Oh, I do. But I'm just polite.
It's true. You know, one of us has to be the angel in this situation, and I'm too sinful to be the angel in anything.
Fair.
I have sinned for you, my lord.
Diego, do you have another character?
Do I have another character? You bet I do.
Oh,
But
boy.
first of all, does anybody else have any other topics before I go next? Because I don't want to go twice in a row.
Okay. Chrome, did you have one that you wanted to bring up since you are a guest?
You know, I was thinking of a couple of them actually. Yeah. Specifically, I think of one from one of the games that I am actually shameless plug currently streaming right now. But so I'm very much into the Yakuza series, and there's definitely a good number of villains in there. Some of them are just completely despicable. And one of them, I believe his name is Owato. He's from Yakuza 0, and he's just this playboy motherfucker that just is not. He's a terrible human being. So to kind of paint a mental picture, this guy, he's so Yakuza 0 takes place in the 80s. So everything is very bold and brash and like just so larger than life. And this guy is part of a conglomerate, specifically a triumvirate of Yakuza bosses. And he has this like purple sweater, just plain purple, but like bright purple, with a gold chain that kind of goes around his neck. And he's big. He's this big guy, gluttonous looking, like specifically. And he's got this incredible pompadour first and foremost. Like the guy at least knows his way around hair, but like he's merciless in that he will just kind of kill without a thought. Which, hey, in the Yakuza series, for those of you who have played it, which by the way, actually, before I continue, have either of you played the Yakuza series?
I skimmed through one of them, but I'm gonna be honest.
Okay.
I'm only familiar with the franchise by association. If I'm not mistaken, our friend Lewis has played the games, and so did my friend Gabe. When it comes to Sega and Japanese games, I usually stick to Persona.
Okay, fair. Diego, have you?
I have not. In fact, you are teaching me most of what I know right now.
Okay, fair. Well, first and foremost, play it,
Okay.
play it.
Yes.
Jesus Christ, play it. It's so much fun. And Yakuza Zero specifically, if you were gonna play any of the Yakuza games, in my opinion, Yakuza Zero has the most bang for your buck in terms of story, in terms of gameplay, in terms of like all of it's equal parts absurdity and equal parts drama. Like it's genuinely very good. But to kind of give a quick recap of the story, essentially you play as this guy named Kiryu, who is a part of the Yakuza in the 80s. He's like in his 20s. I think Godfather Part 2, in terms of like, he's this kind of up and coming guy. And a lot goes down where he suddenly gets framed for a murder that he didn't commit, and he has to try and clear his name even though he's a part of the criminal underground, and it's a whole thing. It's very interesting. But anyway, back on topic. Owato is just this, yeah, gluttonous is probably the best way I can describe him. And he's gluttonous not just with his wealth and with what he, what he does with his money, but also just with lives in general. Like there's this one scene where he's dancing with this woman. Like dance clubs are a big part of the game, and he's dancing with this woman just randomly, like while chatting to Kiryu, and then he just shoots her, just point
Oh
blank.
gosh.
Jesus.
Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah, and it's very shocking and very, but while doing so, he's making a statement of like, we know who you are, and just so you know, you're not safe. So have fun with that. And it's very, just very generally this scary guy. But he's so good. Like, again, it's one of those things you love to hate him. Like, he's just this slime ball of a character, and he's great. and the game's great. Go play Yakuza 0. Go play the Yakuza games. You'll have a great time. But since Seb kidnapped me and brought me into this into the Wasteland area of this wonderful channel, I was woefully unprepared for to bring some characters to the forefront. So you'll have to forgive me. I'm reaching for scraps here, but hopefully that one gets a pass. So we'll see.
In my defense, you weren't exactly easy to kidnap, so give yourself a little credit.
Hey, if any, I'm a fighter, not a lover, or am I? Anyway,
Oh God.
I'm gonna mute now.
Oh, Jesus. And before I say anything, why yes, Kate, yes, Evan Hansen is in the thumbnail. I'll let you gasp in astonishment. Oh, that damn pony. So, I have been made aware of the Yakuza series, as I mentioned, and I have seen nothing but balls to the wall insanity coming from this franchise, and that's not a bad thing. It is just incredible how this series manages to go from ultra serious, holy shit, like we're talking Godfather style drama, and then in a few minutes later, it goes just absolutely ballistic. It just goes crazy. Like, to put it bluntly, it on one hand, it goes from, to make a better comparison, it basically goes from Godfather to Dude, Where's My Car in less than a snap.
Yeah, pretty much. It's very much Godfather to the silly spaghetti people.
Honestly, you can kind of argue that it's sort of the video game equivalent of RRR, where the story is
Very much so.
When the story is ultra serious, but the actual movie itself is just completely bonkers. Like, we're talking like a historical drama, talking about two real-life figures going on an adventure to try to bring down and save everything, and then along the side, look, it's a musical number, and we're dancing around, and now we're in the Oscars, winning Best Original Song.
Exactly. It's a great time. So, anyway, that's my pick. Diego, did you have anything else to add?
All I gotta say is this is one heck of a pitch, and now I'm invested in Yakuza. I will definitely try it.
Yay!
I will try it ASAP because I'm working on a whole bunch of different stuff. I do fully intend to play it though. Like I'm reading up on Yakuza 0 currently right now on the Wikipedia archives that were left behind from when the world was still put together. But what I'm reading is interesting, and yeah, I mean, I'm sold.
All right. Heck yeah. Well, I look forward to the next time I come around this little shack. I hope that you'll have played it, or at least be in the process of playing it, and let me know what you think.
Absolutely. Okay. And once again, you guys can check her out on her stream on Twitch, because yes, Twitch is still a thing in the apocalypse. And you'll catch her either playing Yakuza, or going to the Wasteland and Fallout, or playing Hi-Fi Rush.
So good!
It really is.
Oh, the game is so good! The game is so good! Sorry, I'm gonna shut up.
That's actually what we look for here. So, we're gonna take a little recess. We will be back momentarily, everybody. Do not turn off the dial. We will be back. we're back. Alright, so far we have managed to talk about a religious figure and a Yakuza member, because I genuinely, I want to get into Yakuza, I promise you I do, it's just, good lord, I find
It's a lot.
Yes, because this series is effing crazy. And now, ladies and gentlemen, yours truly finally has something to say, because I actually do have characters that I dislike. And not only do I dislike these characters, I outright fucking hate them. So, let's go back to 2011, the year that Ron Howard, yes, that Ron Howard, decided to dip his toes into the world of comedy for the first, and as far as I'm looking at here, the last time in his career with The Dilemma. And yes, if you've seen this movie, or if any of you don't even know what I'm talking about, I'm going to be talking about Vince Vaughn's character, Ronnie Valentine. But first, let me take you guys back as to what this movie is. So, let me ask you guys, when you think of comedies, what type of topic would you say would you find hilarious? Like, what do you consider to be comedy?
I think comedy is more about how, like,
What's that?
how you play
I'm sorry, did you say infidelity? Because if you said infidelity, you must have been thinking what they were coming up with this film.
I mean, the room is funny.
Did you think that he was asking a genuine question? I'm not used to this, man. This is
I'm a little scared.
okay.
Oh,
Well,
you're
just let him be. It'll be
you're
fine.
scared now? Don't worry, it's only gonna get worse. So,
Oh no.
so
Oh, no.
The dilemma.
That irradiated lake is looking pretty good right now.
Oh, trust me, you can't jump in yet. You're stuck with
Aw,
us now.
Come on.
Nope, we're
Okay,
doing this.
No, you do your thing.
So, The Dilemma is a 2011 comedy in quotations about a guy who, along with his best friend, are, I want to say, dealers, I guess mechanics in a car dealership, and his best friend, he ends up catching his wife, played by Winona Ryder, cheating on her husband, played by everyone's favorite Kevin James, with Channing Tatum. And the quote-unquote dilemma of this movie is whether or not he should tell his best friend that his wife is committing infidelity, but he can't do so because his best friend is also very stressed out because they're currently working on a project to create, and I quote, the most non-gay muscle electric car that they can come up with. I'm guessing you have questions.
Yes. First of all, what the fuck? Second of all, why the fuck? Third of all, Ron Howard?
Yes, bitch, Ron Howard. Let's not pin the blame on Ron Howard entirely. He was the director of this movie, but the one responsible for this film is Vince Vaughn, because this was a passion project of his that he ended up co-producing, and he even ended up taking the blame for the most of the film. And he also stars as the main character for this movie, Ronnie Valentine, who is, like Kevin James's character, also a mechanic, and they're currently working to try to get a contract with Dodge, I believe it was. I don't remember, but the point is they're trying to create a muscle car that is also an electric car, and the first thing that made me hate this character horrendously is also the same reason that everybody hated this movie before the movie even came out. Because in 2011, when the film was being promoted, Universal, yes, that Universal, and by the way, Universal, let me monetize my Dear Evan Hansen video, assholes. They released a trailer for the movie, and the very first joke that this trailer came up with was a horrendous homophobic slur that they kept in the movie.
Oh no.
When was this movie made?
2011. And you better
that
believe,
explains it.
yes, and you better believe Anderson Cooper had a couple of things to say about it. In fact, if you two will indulge me, I will tell you exactly what he said. Trigger warning here for the disgusting bits of homophobia I'm about to spill out, but don't worry, I'm bisexual, so I can get away with it. let's face it, electric cars, they're totally gay. I don't mean gay as in homosexual gay. I mean parents are chaperoning the dance. Gay. And then he proceeds to show pictures of electric cars interspliced with pictures of cute, adorable little animals. Because cute, adorable animals are so emasculate and effeminate, and they're very weak. But then, look, muscle cars. Look how strong and big and manly we are. Well, we can make that into a teeny tiny little muscle car that's also an electric car. We can do that. All we have to do is basically get in your good graces. Did I mention this movie failed financially?
I'm not fucking surprised in the slightest.
This is the first thing that this movie decided to use in their trailer. And they had to remove it from the trailer, but they still kept it in the final cut of the film. Because as bad as that horrendous joke is, it's still a plot point. Yes, a plot point. So that's point of conjecture number 1 for why I hate this character. Point of conjecture number 2 is that the dilemma for this movie is that he catches his best friend's wife cheating on her best friend, and he doesn't tell anybody. Not his fiance, whom he is planning on proposing to and marrying. Not his best friend, whose wife is, again, cheating on. No. Who does he talk to about this? The cheating spouse, who then proceeds to blackmail him by saying, if you tell my husband, I will tell him that you and I had sex in college before we ever started dating.
Jesus Christ.
This
is supposed to be humor?
Oh no, it gets better. Instead of doing something as simple as hiring a private detective, motherfucker goes into the adulterer's house, who again is played by Channing Tatum, and takes pictures of him and the cheating spouse while they're in the process of having sex. Again, why couldn't you hire a private investigator to do this? And as he's getting all the evidence that he needs, Channing Tatum fucking beats the shit out of him and takes him into his house, where he then proceeds to start destroying his property, breaking his fish tank, killing his fish, and leaving his camera behind, causing him to go back into the house the next day, paying the guy an extraordinary amount of money for the camera, forgetting for a second that just maybe he could have taken the camera, looked at the pictures, deleted them, and then changed it with a different picture of himself flipping the bird. Which he does. And then finally, after all of this bullshit, it culminates with him finally trying to tell his best friend, only for them to organize... I'm going crazy talking about this. For them to organize an intervention for him, because they think that he has relapsed because he's a former gambling addict. Again, comedy. And in the process of this, they think Channing Tatum is his bookie. And he gets the camera back from him, but again, there's no pictures, and he proceeds to punch him in the face, and finally tells his best friend that not only is his wife cheating on him, but that he slept with her before the two of them ever started dating. And that's the last time we see of Winona Ryder, and his fiance is like, you should have told me about this, I know, but will you marry me? Yeah, sure, why not? But...
Oh...
This just sounds like a bad movie.
Oh, it is a bad movie. An extremely bad movie. And it's made even worse because the protagonist is such an unlikable asshole. I'll let you two... What do you guys think about this little tale that I'm telling you about?
Listening to your pitch was like watching a plane crash in slow motion. It's like it's headed for the mountain. It's headed for the mountain. It's getting closer. The plane is starting to catch fire in the air. People are jumping out. I'm watching in terror, but I also can't take my eyes away from it, or in this case, my ears. This movie is on drugs.
I wish it had the excuse that it was on drugs.
I legitimately do. I'm still just baffled that Ron Howard actually has his name attached to this shit.
Again,
like this man made Apollo 13. He made Rush. He made a ton of other like amazing movies, like fucking cinema classics. And he also made this.
Like I said, this is Ron Howard, but it's also mostly a Vince Vaughn vanity project that he just happens to have his name attached to. But what makes the thing even worse is that for a movie that's supposed to be funny, I don't understand where they thought that this concept would be hilarious. Newsflash, screenwriters. Infidelity is not a funny subject matter. I can't believe I have to spell this out. No one finds that concept funny. In fact, most people usually use that for other terrible movies that just happen to be dramas. In fact, you can get away with making a funny infidelity movie as long as you're trying to make a drama. Not on purpose, though. It has to be by accident.
Yeah. Tommy Wiseau did it best.
Exactly. And the whole film is just him obsessing over this whole thing and ruining his relationship with his fiance and his best friend in the process, all because he can't get over the fact that, oh, I gotta tell him, but also I can't. Oh, wait, maybe he's the one that's cheating because he's going to get a massage. But nope, it's just the wife being an evil villain. I would have talked about her, but I'm not going to mention her because I'm not going to talk about a terribly written female character because she was written by terrible male writers. This, however, was just Vince Vaughn being himself, and I have no one else to blame for this but him. And oh my goodness, it is just so painful. Like, forget for a second how unfunny this is. I can't stand the fact that this movie meanders for an hour and 45 minutes of just this. It's just this for almost 2 hours. And it ends after he finally tells his best friend, and his best friend rightfully punches him in the face and then kicks him in the balls and says, "You handle this whole thing like shit." I'm not saying it was easy, but in the future, if anything like this happens, if it involves us, you have to tell me. Like, no shit, Sherlock! You could have done this the whole time and saved us all the trouble of having to sit through this. And instead, you let your obsession overindulge your senses, and now we're left with a really unfunny movie that thinks cheating on your spouse is funny.
Again, only if you're watching The Room.
Again, that was by accident, though. This was meant to be funny. Chrome, you've been. I'm going to assume you're kind of speechless by what we're talking about here.
Nah, I think she went for a swim in the lake.
I did. You know what? And actually, it was quite refreshing. No, I have some thoughts because here's the thing: the whole subject of comedy is very fascinating to me because so many people like different things, and that can be such a multifaceted, complex thing. In that, for example, there are plenty of people who love crass humor, who are some of the most intelligent people that I know. Yet they love such stupid humor, and I will never understand why. The subject of this and everything about it that you've mentioned is completely fucked and absolutely not okay. But at the same time, it's an interesting lens to look through it because the 2011 and everything around the 2000s, 2010s, especially the 2010s, was incredibly homophobic. It was a very not good time to be LGBTQ+. And and therefore, though, a lot of different movies had that kind of humor, and it doesn't mean it was right. It was just a symptom of what time period it was and the scope of the culture at the time. And I think that it's an interesting look at things because then you get into the idea of when you're talking about infidelity, you're getting into the option of entertainment when it comes to comedy and how that is so very subjective. So many people have different scopes of what they find comedic and what they don't. And actually, the person that I have next on the chopping block for the character I really dislike, many would argue that they absolutely love that character. And so I'm excited to get into the weeds of it at least a little bit. But it's interesting being an observer and seeing a really shit movie from the sound of it really say these things that have not aged well in the slightest, and still at that time obviously were not okay. But it makes me wonder, who did find that funny, and who were they like, and what did they enjoy? Now, obviously, from this, it sounds like this was all Vince Vaughn's idea, and that this was a vanity project, like you mentioned. I think you hit that right in the head. But I don't know. For me, I tend to look at things a little bit more on the objective side, which with comedy being so subjective, that makes it really difficult to kind of nail down. But yeah, it's all that to say, shit movie, shit character from the sound of it. That absolutely has not changed, nor has what was said or done within the scope of it. Okay, um, it's just interesting. It's an interesting case study, I suppose, and I'm very curious to see what you two think of the person I'm going to bring to the chopping block.
That ought to be interesting to see. And I just wanted to add also, while I did say that they removed the gay joke from the trailer, Ron Howard himself was actually okay with the removal of it from the trailer, but not from the final cut of the film. And he actually said, and I quote, "If storytellers, comedians, actors, and artists are strong-armed into making creative changes, it will endanger comedy as both entertainment and a provoker of thought."
Yep, people have been crying wolf like that for years.
Yeah. Reminder, this was the last comedy that I'm aware of that he directed, so I'm going to assume he strong-armed himself into never doing this kind of thing again, but that's beside the point. Ronnie from The Dilemma, horrible character, but what you expect from a horrible movie where Vince Vaughn plays himself. So, I think we can go ahead and move on with our next topic, because I need a break before I can rage about my next ridiculous entry. Who would like to go? You know what, Chrome, since you brought it up, how about you go ahead and indulge
sure.
us?
I'll go. Yeah. So mine is kind of nuanced, and I do want to, before y'all get your pitchforks, please understand that I have only a limited scope, and I do not partake in media I do not enjoy.
Oh, this is going to be interesting.
So I have only seen limited amounts of this show. So I need you guys to just kind of take that into consideration. Don't come after me, especially because I'm a woman. Please do not come after me about this. I really do not like Rick or Morty from Rick and Morty.
Yes!
I think that they are terrible characters. I think that they are terrible people. And I think that the now to its credit, again, before you get the pitchforks out, just hear me out. I think that Rick and Morty is an incredibly nuanced show. I will give it that. I think that there is a lot underneath the humor that is very poignant, is very interesting. And I think that there is a decent amount there. However, this is a personal bias thing. This is something that just completely rubs me, Chrome, me, I in the audience. It rubs me the wrong way, and the reason why is because I've never been okay with immature humor. That's just something that does not float my boat, and it very much really it's like a pet peeve of mine, where if it's immature, if it's toilet humor, that's something that I can't really get behind. But I think that the characters of Rick, and especially of Morty, Rick I can tolerate to a point. Morty absolutely bugs the crap out of me. And I think that it's because you're looking at a man-child, and that's supposed to be funny. And to me, that isn't funny. I'll show you a man-child that is really funny. Archer.
Yes, I will 100% back that up.
Yeah, because Archer to me is, and Archer as a show, as a whole, from what I've seen, I haven't seen it in forever, but from what I've seen, I thoroughly enjoyed Archer, even though it does also use toilet humor, but it does it in such a clever way that I was able to enjoy it. And this kind of goes back to my previous point about humor being subjective, because there are a lot of folks who, and in fact, I would argue a decent amount of the people listening right now probably really, really enjoy Rick and Morty, and that's fine. Like, I'm not coming after you about you shouldn't like Rick and Morty, or how dare you find Rick and Morty funny. For me, though, where like I want to just punt Morty across a football field. And I could, given his small stature. And I think that it's but more so, what I'm disappointed in when it comes to those two, especially Morty. I'm just gonna wail in on Morty real quick here. It gives people listening the excuse to act like that. And as a person of she her pronouns, I am cisgendered, I am heterosexual. However, I hate the effect that that show has had on many folks who have consumed it. Not all, obviously, but on many. And the cultural repercussions that have come from media such as that. But especially, like I said, especially from Morty. Jerry's also included in this. Rick is also included in this. But especially from Morty, where and I understand that that's his point. I understand that the point of his character is for him to be a man-child. And that's fine, as long as you're able to make it entertaining. And it just isn't for me. And I think that the amount of times that I've rolled my eyes at Rick and Morty, and the amount of times that I've just straight up shut it off, have been quite a decent amount. But and everybody has come to me, this is a very much a point of contention with my friends, because I love my friends dearly, and they really like Rick and Morty, and there's a big discussion and discourse, I suppose, regarding it, of like, no, here's the thing about Rick and Morty, is always what they say. And you know what? That's fair. But that doesn't change the fact that I just can't stand those characters. And more so, I can't stand like I said, the cultural repercussions that those characters have brought into the modern day, into society. Now, I think that this new generation has not grown up on Rick and Morty. And that's a whole other can of worms that we are not going to get into. But I think that people my age, I'm in my late 20s right now, and you still see it even at this age. And yeah, it's just that type of character, but in this case I'm going directly with Morty, really, really rubs me the wrong way. And yeah, I'd like to kick him across a football field.
Well, let me just start off by saying I'm glad somebody else said it, because oh my god, I felt the exact same way.
Cheers, buddy.
I never understood I can understand why people will enjoy certain stuff. Like, I may not agree with it, but I can at least understand it. I have never understood the appeal of Rick and Morty. Even after watching all of season 1, the only thing that I got out of it was, that stupid everyone's gonna die, come watch TV is not that deep. That is the only thing I took out of all of that. And the only episode that genuinely made me laugh was the one episode where Rick and Jerry got kidnapped by the alien force that tried to steal something from him, and they basically made everything into a hologram, or some other nonsense, and then Rick blows them up at the end, because none of this matters. It's nihilistic, and oh god, I'm so sick of nihilism. But
yeah, we can get into the weeds about Rick and Morty for sure, but
yes, but no, I completely agree. Especially, Morty is a fucking can of worms that I'm not even going to get into myself, because I also want to punch him and deck him across the football field. Rick, however, is, to me, what I find irritating about Rick personally is that he's not really a character so much as he is just a surrogate for that one intellectual asshole who thinks that he's better than everybody, because he's not afraid to quote-unquote call it like he sees it, or basically speak his wisdom to anybody who might be listening. And Rick has never been a character that I found appealing, especially the way that he ends up causing all the bullshit that he causes. But combine that with a little neurotic like Morty, and you just have yourself a pair that you do not want to hang around with. And I don't understand how the hell this show has been going for as long as it. Actually, what am I kidding? I know exactly why. Because I may not understand it, but I know exactly what kind of audience this attracts. And considering how you had to emphasize multiple times that you are in fact a cisgender female, yes, I do completely understand. And to anyone who watches this video taking the wrong idea, fuck all of you in the asshole because you do not matter. I have had to put up with so many dude bros who have told me multiple times how Rick and Morty is the second coming, how they opened their third eyes with how the wisdom of Rick ended up teaching them. And do I also need to bring up a certain mysterious Mr. Enter who quoted Rick Sanchez while trying to justify how he was perfectly in the right, trying to shit talk Turning Red because the movie took place in 2002 and didn't reference 9/11. Like, Rick and Morty, if I say Rick and Morty isn't funny, that's fine. That's just an opinion. No one's gonna badmouth me because I don't find it funny. But if I have the balls to sit there and say Rick and Morty is not meaningful and the characters are not that good, people will find that offensive. And they need to realize that these characters, you may like them all you want, but they have problems that other people like you refuse to signal or realize. And I'm glad that somebody else out there is looking at these problems, because I have been saying this and bottling it up for years, and I'm glad that it's not just me. Not just me or my girlfriend, who also fucking hates Rick and Morty.
Yeah. Well, and I think that, and Diego, I want to hear what you think in just a second. I think that overall, and I do want to kind of give a disclaimer here, is that, again, if you like Rick and Morty, if you have found meaning in it, that's great. I'm really happy for you, and I'm really thankful that that's been able to be enriching for you. That is not my intention here. My intention here is purely just to let you know my perspective and what impact that show has had on me personally, and just, you know, your own feelings about it, just like we all are. So if you're out there in the audience and you're thinking, well, that's not right because I found meaning in this, great. I'm genuinely, like, that's wonderful. Like, I've found meaning in the most stupid things too, so it's totally cool. But just as a disclaimer, just to have that. Diego, you were gonna say something?
Oh no, I was just enthralled listening to you guys talk because it's really interesting. No, I'm actually dead serious. What I want to say is, first of all, I have never seen a single episode of Rick and Morty, and after listening to you guys talk, I don't want to. I want to even less than before. And the reason why it really just goes back to the dude bros that Sebastian was mentioning earlier. There's like a certain attitude that surrounds Rick and Morty, where it's like, oh, this is such a great show. Like, we're cultured people because we watch Rick and Morty.
Yeah.
It's so stupid. Like, listening to you guys describe the show, it makes it even more asinine that people actually think this way about about Rick and Morty. Like, this show, and I've only ever seen bits and pieces of it. I've seen like little clips that are like on TikTok or on YouTube or whatever. They're clips where it looks like the writers on this show poured some cocaine into some Red Bull and then just chugged it all and tried to write an episode of Futurama.
I mean,
but instead what they came out with was this.
I mean, would it surprise you if I told you that the majority of the dialogue is literally just Justin Roiland burping into a microphone for 20 minutes?
No, look, here's the thing, too, because, like, the two characters, from what I've seen and heard of them, I dislike I completely see why Chrome dislikes these characters so much, and especially Morty. Like, Morty's just a whiny baby, and Rick is an alcoholic. Like, he's constantly angry, irritated at everyone. I legitimately don't see what's so funny about this pair. And I understand they're also supposed to be like this mean-spirited parody of Doc and Marty from Back to the Future. At the same time, I just correct me if I'm wrong, but it's so baffling to me that it's gotten such a big fandom. And one of my favorite TV writers, Dan Harmon, who has written some of the best and also some of the worst episodes of Community, let me be completely honest, is involved in a show like this. Like, it baffles me. Like, what parts of this show is he involved in?
I mean, if we're going by the allegations against Justin Roiland, he's pretty much the only one trying to keep the ship afloat, because Justin Roiland is too busy sexting underage kids than actually doing anything with the show.
Yeah.
Ugh. I didn't hear about that, yeah.
Just another reason for why I hate Rick and Morty, because both Rick and Morty are technically sex offenders.
Ooh.
Yeah. It's a big old can of worms, and it's hard to really nail down a few things, like as far as the cultural repercussions and just really what's wrong with the show as is. I personally hesitate to say a show is completely wrong or completely terrible unless it does a lot of offensive things, which Rick and Morty has gotten definitely close. You know, but I think that like there's an interesting like I said before, even is an interesting case study to also look at the time frame in which it was made, the people who made it, and really how the people who found that longing in that Sebastian, you had mentioned earlier about nihilism and how that's such a huge part of the show. I know that for me, nihilistic media does not resonate with me. It never has. But I think that there's something to be said about it's almost like a cry for help in a lot of ways for people who do enjoy it. Possibly, I could be speculating here. Please don't come at me. But to see why people find that kind of meaning in nihilistic media, but then you look at Everything Everywhere All at Once, which is nihilistic media, but it also has such a tilt to it of it almost boomerangs and comes back and says, but nevertheless, we are going to make it. And it's going to be okay. And I think that Rick and Morty never really had that boomerang. It never really got to that point of, wait, no, everything can be okay. At least not, maybe it has. I haven't seen the show in forever. Maybe it has, but, you know, I think that that's a whole other interesting can of worms for nihilism within media, especially in terms of, like, Rick and Morty versus Everything Everywhere All at Once. And there's, because let me tell you, I did not like Everything Everywhere All at Once when I first saw it. I was just confused, and it was very hard for me to try and grasp it and try and, like, understand it. Granted, my viewing experience also hindered that a little bit. There was like a light on the entire time, and it was annoying. Anyway, I digress. When I saw it a second time, it clicked, and that made a lot more sense to me, and I love it. I love that movie so much. But yeah, it's I don't know. I think that the whole thing with Rick and Morty warrants a little bit of a deeper look, but we're here to rage, and I fucking hate Morty. So there we are.
Exactly.
That's really what it comes down to.
Basically. And also, before I continue, Kate, because I only just realized that your comments were starting to pop in, I want to clarify that Vince Vaughn is still currently active, and he's still doing movies, and the last time that I saw him in, he was in that movie that Mel Gibson did, the one with, the one with Andrew Garfield. Hacksaw Ridge. Yes. That's the one, and that was a really good film that even he was in it, really good in as well.
I want to see Hacksaw Ridge so bad.
It's so good.
It's so good.
Yes.
My boyfriend loves it.
Yeah, just keep in mind, like you mentioned, with your tolerance for violence, this film is bloody as shit. Yeah,
he told me.
It's a war movie.
Yes. But going back to Rick and Morty, though, like, the only time that this show has made me feel any sort of existential dread was when I watched a clip of that asshole going to McDonald's and doing the pickle Rick thing, like a pickle Rick! And then I found out that it was staged. Yeah, sure, it was staged between you were staging it, but nobody in McDonald's was aware of it, so as far as anyone was concerned, you were having a fucking hissy fit over a stupid Mulan sauce that nobody gave a shit about until this episode came out. But Rick and Morty makes people stupid. Like, I refuse to accept that this is the quote unquote a cartoon for smart people. Like, if this is what's considered for smart people, I'd hate to see what's considered the dumbest. Yes, and Kate, do not
Pretty low standard.
very
Yeah.
much. And Kate, do not apologize for blowing up the chat. I mean, it gives us engagement, so go ahead and spam it as much as you want. But for now, ladies and gentlemen, we were gonna take another final recess, and we will come back with more terrible characters for us to shit on. Oh my god, that little break was something because I nearly went on a 5-minute long rant about The Walking Dead, but instead, we're gonna listen to Diego, who I'm sure has somebody that we would all love to hear about. Diego, I know for a fact that there was one particular character that you wanted to bring up that every one of us unanimously agrees is the most hated, whatever the reasons might be. So, why don't you go ahead and enlighten us? Who is this character?
Okay, so everybody, this one's going to be a little predictable, but nonetheless warranted. We all remember the movie and also the book, Harry Potter and the Order of the Phoenix. I personally have never read any of the books, but I do remember how much I love the 5th installment. It's probably my favorite one in the franchise. And one of my favorite parts of Order of the Phoenix specifically is how it talks about interference of government in the educational system, both how it negatively affects students and teachers, as well as the consequences of suppressing information and sense of identity, things like that. Before I go on too long, you guys all know who I'm talking about. I'm talking about Undersecretary Dolores Umbridge.
What?
AKA the Karen to defeat all Karens.
Never would have guessed.
And also, before we continue talking about this, because we're talking about Harry Potter, Joanne Rowling, if you're watching this, fuck you. Trans Lives Matter.
Fuck you.
Yeah,
Turf.
fuck you, Trans Like Ladders.
Be gone, turf.
Exactly.
Bye-bye.
Now, Diego, please indulge with us. For those who have not have the privilege of getting to meet the bitch in pink, why don't you tell us who is this Dolores Umbridge and why is she so hated?
Okay, well, she's essentially... Well, if you watch the news and don't watch movies, she's essentially British Marjorie Taylor Greene who does magic. She's a complete diva, just completely self-centered. For some reason, she's a wizard who hates magic. She hates the practicing of magic. She bans, I think, Defense Against the Dark Arts class, if I remember correctly. It's been a minute since I've seen Order of the Phoenix. But anyway, everything I said about the suppression of education and all that stuff, Dolores Umbridge represents that so well. It's not just how she inhumanely punishes Harry Potter by making him write with that magic pen that like scars his hand. Remember that scene?
Mm-hmm.
She God. Also, horrific stuff, man. I felt so bad for Harry. She also denies the return of Voldemort, and she downplays Cedric Diggory's death, and it's probably what I hated about her the most, because it goes to show that when you like suppress information like that, it's really just frustrating to the people who have been through trauma and like terrible situations like that firsthand. I mean, Harry Potter's life has essentially centered around his life is in danger from being killed by Voldemort. But Dolores Umbridge is like, nah, Voldemort's a hoax. Just like climate change.
Diego, I want to
Singer.
Diego, hold on. I want to stop you for a second there before you continue. Kate actually has a very important question. Since she's basically Wizard Marjorie Taylor Greene, does she think that the Muggles have a space laser?
I would not be surprised if she did. That is actually a very good point. Thank you for bringing that up, Kate.
Oh my god. Go ahead and continue. Oh god, I can't get over
The last thing I want to talk about is Imelda Staunton, who played this character to perfection. That is one of the best performances in the whole franchise. That smug smile she has. I've never wanted to dropkick someone as hard as I've wanted to dropkick Dolores Umbridge, and it's all thanks to how well Imelda Staunton played the character. So bravo, props to her.
Would you believe me if I told you she specifically wanted this role without being told that she was going to be playing a hateable character, because she didn't want to play that?
Well, she certainly didn't get what she planned.
No, but she overcorrected herself in the best way possible. So, congratulations, Imelda Staunton. You became the biggest Karen in the world, and we thank you for it.
I mean, we love to hate her. I'll tell you that. We love to hate her.
Except for, unlike Joanne, who we just hate because she sucks.
Yeah, She just sucks.
Oh,
Shut up, Joanne.
Exactly. So, I'll give my perspective on this, because when I first saw this woman, I was already in high school. This movie came out in 2011, the same time The Dilemma came out. No, actually, scratch that. This movie came out way, way before, because I remember in 2011, Deathly Hallows Part 2 came out, if I'm not mistaken. So this movie came out while I was still in high school. Holy shit, I'm old. And when I watched it, and I saw this person for the first time, like, I thought to myself, okay, something is fishy about this woman, but you know what? Maybe she's gonna be one of those characters that you kind of have to get used to a little bit. Maybe she's gonna be nice, because why would it be that every single Defense Against the Dark Arts teacher just happens to be a genocidal asshole or a fucking lunatic? I'm sensing a pattern,
that's what
Joanne.
teaching does to you sometimes, man.
I mean, yeah, but when I saw the way that she was basically, what's the word here? Gaslighting everybody into thinking that Cedric Diggory did not get killed by Voldemort, and then force Harry to write that stupid line on the piece of paper, parchment, I'm sorry, because we're Americans and we're stupid, and as he was writing it, he slowly was writing it on his flesh. I was cringing so hard in the movie theater, I actually thought about leaving, but I couldn't because my uncle was my ride. And, oh my goodness. It was like, I have never in a million years, even back then, I was always very nice and very respectful. I made the exception at that moment in my life. I wanted to just go into the screen and just drop kick this bitch in the face. Not just because of this. Not even because of this. But she goes to... So, again, Joanne had a good idea, but she missed a point in her own life where she ends up taking over the school, essentially forcing her own regime onto everything, providing stricter rules, making everybody a lot abiding by her own code of conduct, even going so far as to forcing other teachers to leave the school because they, in her eyes, are not living up to her standards as to what their jobs should be like. And let me tell you, having Harry write down his name with that quill was one thing, but the second that this maniacal bitchbag decided it was a good idea to force out poor Professor Trelawney, I wanted to scream. Like,
I felt so bad.
You do not fuck around with Emma Thompson. I swear to God, I wanted to scream. Even as a kid who didn't know who most of these actors were, I knew that there was something wrong with this scene. And as I grew up, I realized now I was completely right in feeling like that. So when Dumbledore showed up, he was like, you have the right to dismiss my teachers. You do not, however, have the authority to banish them from the ground. I was like, well, where the hell were you this whole time, asshole? Because she's been doing a whole bunch of other stuff throughout the school. Or do I need to show you the wall of rules that she has lined up? Because every day a new rule comes in. I swear to God, this woman comes up with more rules than Ron DeSantis comes up with more bills to fuck up with gay people and trans people. In fact, you know what? She's not just the she's not just the wizarding Marjorie Taylor Greene. She's also the wizarding Ron DeSantis.
Yup.
Kind of hit the nail right on the head with that one. So before I continue raging, Crum, how about you take this one? Because if I continue this, I'm gonna get an aneurysm.
Listen, guys, I gotta come clean. The world ended before I could finish the Harry Potter movies, so I haven't actually seen past Chamber of Secrets.
Oh my God, you poor baby!
Wow.
Yeah.
I mean,
I have read up to Order of the Phoenix, and I stopped halfway because I was getting pissed at Harry. So, I tried. I gave it the good college try, and I might come back and do it. But I'm gonna be real with you, Chief. I have not seen the scenes that make Dolores Umbridge as terrible as she sounds, and I know of her obviously from osmosis. But I have actually never watched it, so I can't necessarily comment beyond she sounds like a bitch, and that's an understatement.
That's putting it mildly.
So,
yeah. I will tell you this. I will tell you this. As much as we're hyping her up to be a bitch, when you actually sit down and watch the film, it actually surprises you just how much you hate her. Like, there's no way we can put into words how we felt. Because, I'd heard a ton of things growing up about Dolores Umbridge. When the movie came out, everybody was talking about, oh man, Dolores Umbridge is such a bitch. Professor Umbridge, like, I just want to drop kick her. I just want to throw her out of a building or something like that. And I thought that I had heard everything, like, surrounding this character. Nothing prepared me for the scene.
I'm sure, yeah.
Oh my God! Please watch the film. It trust me, it will actually surprise you.
Yeah. Hopefully pirate it so that you don't give neither Warner Brothers nor Joanne any revenue.
Well, I will see. Maybe can't make any promises. I gotta find the thing first.
If not, just
how hard it is to find a freaking DVD out here.
Oh, yeah.
A complete one, not to mention a TV that works.
Just the fact that we can manage to afford this setup is kind of insane, especially considering that we still had to crank up the power. Oh,
yep.
So now that
maybe we should hook up to the radioactive lake. Maybe that might provide us some power. I don't know.
I mean, honestly, we're going to be powering up by both radiation and water, so we're going to be getting twice the power and twice the radiation poisoning.
Nuclear-powered TV.
Great.
Might as well.
Thanks. Can I go home now?
Not yet, because we're still talking. So...
This is weird. I can't. I'll stick around.
Okay, so now that we've managed to talk about space, why do I keep saying space? I don't know why I keep saying space.
You're stuck on space lasers,
Radioactive
bro.
lake.
I'm gonna take a dip in the radioactive lake after this. I need to.
You're not supposed to drink the water, guys.
Yeah, don't do that. That's bad for your bones. It makes you die, and that's very bad for your health.
What? I thought dying was okay. Anyways,
Mm.
so I have. Jesus Christ. Okay, I have one particular character that I can bring up. It's not as hateable. Well, actually, it is just as hateable, but not as despicable as Ronnie from The Dilemma. But it is still one that I feel like I need to bring up here because I can't talk about hateable characters and not talk about my favorite punchline. I'm sorry, my favorite punching bag, Evan Hansen. More specifically, movie Evan Hansen.
Oh boy, here we go.
Oh boy.
Okay, so...
Wow.
what-
Didn't you make an entire video about this?
And
Yeah!
he's still not done.
And
No.
you're still not done.
Oh,
Alright, buckle in, Diego. It'll be
I'm
great.
never gonna be done with this. Up until that point where me and a certain pony finish a video talking about The Greatest Showman, I will not be able to rest talking about Evan Hansen. So, you know what? I'll make this a twofer. I'll make a small discussion.
Oh, boy.
And then I'll move on to a more hateable character instead.
Were the other ones small discussions too? What's your range on small?
Well, let's see. With Evan Hansen, let's see. We have a despicable character who lies through his teeth, takes the basically parasites himself into a grieving family to try to bang their daughter. And the grieving sister of the guy who bullied him and pushed him onto the floor told his mom, well, I'm sorry that you're poor and these people can afford the education that you can't provide for me. And then out of everything that's happening, we're supposed to feel bad because he jumped out of a fucking tree and tried to kill himself. A small-ass little
idiot.
apple tree. A small-ass little apple tree. The smallest apple tree you could have picked. Motherfucker, there are buildings where you're living in. I'm not trying to I'm not trying to condone anything. I'm just saying, if you felt this bad, there was other ways of doing so that didn't involve you breaking your arm like a total dumbass. But I'm gonna be nice. I'm going to, just
No, you're not.
let that...
No, you're not. Stop kidding.
No, you won't. We don't
No, you're
believe
not.
that.
I know, I'm gonna try.
You just screamed about an apple tree. There's no niceties that are gonna be happening here. You might as well be real with yourself.
Okay, fine. You know what? You want
Speak your
you want to
truth.
do this? You want to do this? Let's do this. Okay. Well,
No, I'm not doing.
no.
Oh god.
No. You brought this up. No,
I
let's
didn't.
talk about You Will Be Found and why You Will Be Found is a fucking lie of a song. Who is being found here, Evan? The guy that Connor? Is Connor the one being found? Because it's hard to find him when he's already been buried into the dirt. Who is
Just
being
look 6
found,
feet under.
Evan?
Just look 6 feet under.
Yeah, no, it's like you will be found under the fucking dirt.
I'll tell you who this movie is gonna find. It's gonna find trees. This movie really likes trees, guys.
It is obsessed with trees. For some reason, the musical and the movie, they will not shut up about fucking trees. For Forever is a fetishistic song about how Evan loves trees. And for some reason, he thinks the family is really that invested in it. You can't see me on the stream, but thankfully I'm gonna calm down now. Okay, that's enough about Evan Hansen. I'm gonna stop.
Hot take. I liked You Will Be Found.
Moving on!
He sounded just like Doug Walker on that one.
Fuck you, Diego! Okay. My other character that will not have me sweating like a creep right now, because oh my god, this room is so hot. So, my other character that I wanted to talk about is from a movie that you all probably never heard of either. This is a movie called All About Steve.
Nope.
Okay, so let's go back to 2011. Wow, actually no, that's a lie. That's a lie. 2009. I remember this movie came out in 2009 or 2010. It was around the same time that The Blind Side came out. So this is a Sandra Bullock movie where she plays a ditzy character named Mary Horowitz. She's got long red hair and walks around with these ridiculous red boots. And she loves to write crossword puzzles because she works for the local newspaper. One day, she meets the hottest man in the world, whose name is Steve, played by Bradley Cooper. And at first she's like, oh, but he's gotta be gay. But no, he's hot, so he can't be gay. So she goes to her room, sluts herself up, and goes on a date with him. And when I say they go on a date, I mean he asks her out on a date, they get into his van, she starts assaulting him by kissing him repeatedly, he gets terrified, she grabs a candy wrapper that she took from his van, after he kicks her out of the van, leaves, and then she's like, all about Steve, and proceeds to write an entire crossword puzzle about all the different things about Steve. May I remind you, this is the first time that they meet. So then she gets fired from her job, and she uses this as justification to be like, hey, Mary, you're in a job, so you're not going to be able to get Steve. Oh, but wait, I don't have a job. Onward, Mary Horowitz, go find Steve. And she goes, I swear to God, she goes on a cross-country trip to stalk this poor bastard, looking at around wherever the hell he is because he works for a news company. Not a newspaper, just a news company. He's a camera guy. And they go into 3 different states in 72 hours. It's him, it's Bradley Cooper, Thomas Hayden Church, and Ken Jeong, because this is around the time that the Hangover movies came out, so of course we have to put Ken Jeong in everything. And as we're following them around, Mary is stalking this guy, and he is so terrified that they even start using the Jaws music every time she gets close to him, and he even gets so terrified at the concept that he starts wearing a disguise because he doesn't want her to know that it's him. And throughout this whole time, she continues to follow him because she really desperately thinks that by being where he is, it'll be like Sims rules. If you just get close to the guy, eventually a romantic relationship will come. I'm gonna stop for a second, because I want to hear if you guys can understand what the hell I'm talking about here.
It sounds like 12th Night.
Is
or
it?
As You Like It. Yeah, it sounds like it's Shakespeare plot. I don't remember which one specifically, but I'm pretty sure that's a Shakespeare plot.
If it is, then the people who wrote this owe somebody royalties. Because this entire movie is literally just a very dim-witted woman trying to get some guy to fall in love with her after they went out on one date. And the whole thing is just so creepy. She literally knows nothing about this guy, and yet she is following him wherever the hell he goes in a very stalkery fashion. But because this is supposed to be a quote-unquote romantic comedy, because whoever coined that phrase needs to fucking burn, this movie wants us to root for her because she's supposed to be the protagonist. Even though everyone in the movie, even people who are just background extras, they see her as annoying too. Like, who's supposed to be... Like, are we supposed to sympathize with her, or are we supposed to be laughing at her instead of with her? Which one is it, movie? And the worst part is that Sandra Bullock, bless her heart, she won an Oscar the same year this movie came out. Unfortunately, she also won a Razzie for this very same movie the same year. I think this is the first time that an Oscar winner also became a Razzie winner on the same year. And to give her a little bit of credit, she was upfront about the whole thing, and she even accepted the Razzie in person because she understood that this movie was completely stupid and everything was just very creepy about it. And yeah, I'm glad that you're self-aware about it, but you're still playing a character who is in her... Well, I don't know how old the character's supposed to be, but you were in your mid-50s, and this character is supposed to be chasing around the guy from the Hangover movies. This is not only creepy, it's also wildly unrealistic and stupid, because I don't know who thought it was a good idea to cast a 50-something-year-old Sandra Bullock in a role that was clearly made for a 20-something-year-old actress.
Oh my god. This is ringing so many bells. I remember a movie that came out, let me see. Hold on. When did this movie came out?
It was around, I think it was 2010.
Okay, so it brings up a movie that came out in the late 90s starring Mark Wahlberg. It was called Fear. And basically a lot of the same stuff. It's an older person chasing after a younger person. It's completely creepy. She stalks him, she chases him around, she forces herself on him. Basically all the same stuff that happens in Fear. And just complete manipulation. I mean, you name it. Everything just like beat for beat, man. Like the only difference is that because we're looking at it through the lens of it's a woman instead of a man, all of a sudden it's not supposed to be creepy because it's a woman chasing after a guy. He's supposed to like that. So it's basically it's reverse misogyny too. Exactly. Which is what I hate about this.
Even worse, she actually causes him physical harm because there's a moment in the movie where he is hanging from a balcony of sorts, and she accidentally pulls on the cord from the camera that he was holding. A big ass camera, by the way, like the kind that they would use for news media. So that shit's got to be both huge and expensive. And he falls like 5 feet onto the floor on his back. Like, ooh. Yeah, no, of course he's gonna get up because this is a movie and he's obviously falling onto a mattress. But in real life, I'm pretty sure this guy would be in the hospital.
Yeah, he'd be getting checked out by doctors and stuff.
Yes, and this movie is so tone deaf. Like, Mary as a character is basically treated like Amelie, almost, where everything is so bleak and crazy and serious and kind of harsh, but she's just in her own little world. Oh, everything is roses and sunshine, and Steve is so important because, oh my gosh, Steve, and his lips, they taste like mint explosion. Ugh, God, just say, yeah, no, and actually that's part of the crossword puzzle. It's like what Steve's lips taste like, mint explosion. Ugh, God.
What?
I would like to remind you, this is after half a date that wasn't even really a date, and she wrote this in one night. In the span of one night, and her editor, for some reason, did not pick up on this before they published it in the local news, and then her boss finally found out, and that's when they fired her. It's like, do you people not have proofreaders? Like, sure, you can argue that a lot of angers that I have for this is because the movie's just that badly written, and it is, but even if this movie was written by Scorsese, Greta Gerwig, and fucking Noah Baumbach, if it was anything like what we got here, it's still a very creepy and very not funny at all film about a woman stalking a guy that she barely knows. The only reason why I didn't rage as much about her like I did for Evan Hansen is because she doesn't have a musical sung by Pasek and Paul, and also because at least the movie is self-aware enough to not have him and her hook up by the end. Because it's too busy. In this movie about a woman stalking a guy trying to get into his pants, the movie ends with a bunch of children who are hard of hearing falling into a fucking pit. Follow me on this, because this is where the movie officially lost me, because I had to pause the movie, rewind, because I got confused. A bunch of kids are running into a meadow, and then they all fall into a pit. I don't know how they're all still alive, but they are. And the whole final act is her trying to help a little girl that got stuck because she stupidly fell into the pit trying to get to Steve. And they can't use any fire because there's a gas leak under it and they'll accidentally burn her. Oh, and also, if you see the posters and you know about the red boots that I mentioned, she explains why she wears those stupid red boots. In fact, let me quote what she said in her own words. Oh yeah, and also, the piece de resistance. Hey Mary, why do you wear those stupid red boots all the time? I wear them because it makes my toes feel like 10 friends on a camping trip.
Jesus Christ.
I don't know what they were intending for this. It almost feels like Mary was supposed to be a neurodivergent character, but they were too afraid that they would be rightfully called out as ableist for doing so. And instead, they just wrote her as cuckoo and crazy because that's not ableist. It's okay. They're not mentally challenged. They're just crazy. And there's crazy people are obviously crazy. Oh god.
Yeah, not like there's already any stigma surrounding mental health.
Exactly. But the movie never addresses this. We're just supposed to accept that she's crazy. Even the other characters seem to think that she's crazy. Except Ken Jeong, who the woman that is continuously stalking poor Bradley Cooper, he looks at him and he says, "She's not a psycho, you're the psycho." I haven't even gotten into Thomas Hayden Church baiting her into telling her that he's actually in love with you. He's just afraid to say it. Yeah, some friend he is. But yeah, even I could not justify talking about him because as bad as he is, he's not the main protagonist. Mary is. And Mary terrifies the piss out of me. Okay, I'm gonna stop now. I'll leave you two talk. What do you think about all of this?
Chrome, you were the one who has talked the least.
Listen, man. When was this movie made?
2009. 2009.
2009? Okay, well that makes sense. I mean, I hate to retread over things, but like that's something that is worth keeping in mind is that and it doesn't make them any less bad. It actually adds adds context. Because in a lot of ways, those kinds of movies were very much the, a product of the time that when they were made. I think of like 50 First Dates as another, kind of similar film where have either of you seen that one?
I did. I've
heard of it.
I actually really like that movie, but
I really like it too. I really like it too, and
I was just gonna say that I like it. It's just I can acknowledge that there's a lot of it in the movie that has not aged well, like the gender reassignment joke that they did. Good Lord, Sandler.
Yeah, no, for sure, and it definitely hasn't aged well. I haven't watched it in like a decade, so it's been a long time since I've seen it. But still though, that's also a product of its time. Of like. Now, if somebody were to make that a similar film nowadays, that would definitely be in bad taste, I think. Even though the concept is interesting, it makes good entertainment, and it's and it's a cute movie. I actually genuinely really like it. But in this case, I have never seen this movie that you're talking about, and yeah, there is 100% a double standard when it comes to women stalking guys versus the opposite. Like, it's one of those things where like, oh, if you flip the gender, it'd be really creepy. Doesn't make it any less creepy if it's a girl doing it, 100%. But yeah, I mean, I don't really have a lot to add. It sounds terrible. It sounds like again, it's driving me crazy. It does sound like something that Shakespeare wrote. I'm not sure which play it was. I could be completely wrong, but it sounds very familiar in that sense. It almost feels like either like As You Like It or Twelfth Night, but especially the whole what clicked that for me was when you said that she wears a disguise. Because that immediately is like, oh, Shakespeare.
Yeah. Well,
to try and woo someone.
Well, she doesn't wear the disguise. It's Bradley Cooper's character who wears the disguise because he doesn't. Okay. He doesn't want her to recognize him. But then Thomas Hayden Church tells her that it's still him.
I see. Okay, then scratch that. I'm completely wrong. But yeah, I mean, I don't know. I think that it sounds terrible, and again, it sounds very much like a product of its time. Doesn't make it any better. And this is a situation where I feel like I can't really add a whole lot to this. I will say the whole idea of a a girl going after a guy is definitely something that at the time was 100% laughed at, and at the time was also seen as like, oh man, careful, like she'll
What's up,
fuck
boy?
you up.
She'll chew you up.
Yeah, like exactly, precisely, exactly. And that was very much played for laughs. And to a point, like obviously assault is assault, and we don't like that, and especially when and that's an understatement. Here's like a similar example of something I watched. It was A Vampire's Kiss
Oh my god.
of Nicolas Cage. And which is played for laughs, and is also very much a product of his time, and it's freaking insane. Like there's so many out of context. I feel the movie is hilarious. In context, it's not as funny as I imagined it actually. And there were actually some like there is a legitimate like SA scene that he just does, and it's like, whoa. Like I remember I was watching it with my boyfriend, and we both were laughing at it, whatever, and then it kind of was like, oh, haha, that's funny, no, oh god, no, don't do that, like, and it kind of just shifted all of a sudden, and then just kind of brushed it under the carpet, and I was like, I was kind of shocked at that happened, but again, that's very much a comedy, and people are like, and a lot of people do genuinely really enjoy it. It's just an interesting thing to see both sides of those of that argument of, well, not even an argument, just both sides of the similarities of woman stalking man, man stalking woman, and how assault is seen in both of those as comedy when it maybe shouldn't, or maybe that shouldn't be the butt of the joke. In fact, it absolutely should not be the butt of the joke. But yeah, it's, to me, most of what you've been talking about has been very like interesting to look at under the, okay, but what time was it made in? I feel like that context is lost a lot, and it's and that adds a lot of context to then be like, well, yeah, that was funny at the time. Doesn't make it any better. Doesn't make it any better at all. In fact, that's how we learn, But yeah, still sounds like a shitty person, though. Sorry, that was long-winded. I apologize.
Oh, it's perfectly fine. Oh,
Diego, did you want
to? Yeah, I completely agree with everything you said. This Mary lady is a piece of work. And yeah, I once again, if it just comes down to if you switch genders, like a lot of people that actually like this movie are just going to completely switch bases. They're going to be like, oh man, like I can't believe that they're actually playing this for comedy. This isn't funny. And it's all about perspective. And I get that some humor is a product of its time. And like you're saying, doesn't make it any less okay.
Yeah, exactly.
But there you go.
It's not an excuse. It's an explanation.
Basically.
Yep.
Yes. Well, let's see. Does anybody else have anything they would like to add? Any character that they despise or anything like that?
Rome, do you have anybody else?
The bad guy in RRR is an imperialist, and he sucks, and he gets his comeuppance, and it's beautiful. Please go see RRR.
You heard her. You heard her, guys. Go see it. It's absolutely phenomenal. We can't recommend it enough. It's so good.
It's such a good movie.
Yes.
Yeah.
I
know they're not trying to spoil it for me.
Oh my god. Well, Diego, do you have anything else that you would like to add?
I sure do. I would like to add one last character before we wrap this up, if you don't mind.
Okay.
All right,
okay.
Then.
Wild card.
All right, then. Last one for today. Let's go ahead and do so. But first, we're going to take another little break. And when we come back, we will end this stream in the only way we know how. We will be right back. for joining us here, and today we're gonna wrap it up with Diego, who has one last entry for us to talk about. And some of you probably already know what this character might be because Diego actually did an analysis video on this character, but I'll let him talk.
All right, thank you very much. So I absolutely had to make room for this one. This is my favorite movie villain of all time, surpassing any and all of the choices that I mentioned tonight. I'm, of course, talking about Alonzo Harris from the movie Training Day, played by Denzel Washington, in what is easily his best role to date. I swear. I'm putting my foot down on this one. So, shameless plug, as Sebastian already said, I already made an analysis video on Training Day. It's one of my favorite movies of all time, top 3 easily, and I already covered Alonzo extensively in that video, but here's like a more abridged version of my thoughts. He is without a doubt the most terrifying villain I've ever seen in a movie. He's got that kind of energy and charisma that is just, it's so engaging, but like you're also like really scared of him because he's just like so in your face about it. From the first time he shows up in the movie, you're instantly glued to the screen with this guy. I mean, Denzel Washington knocked this role out of the park. I cannot overstate that. His personality is also the most compelling ever written for a villain, in my opinion. He is the ultimate narcissist. He's a perfect strategist when it comes to getting what he wants. Anytime he meets someone, he sizes them up, he figures out what he can get from them, and he knows exactly which strings to pull. It's one of those things that it makes him such a terrifying villain because in addition to Denzel Washington's acting, when you're watching the movie, you're almost frustrated with him because you're just like, holy shit. Like, he gets his plan in motion by manipulating the main protagonist, played by Ethan Hawke. And he's just pulling all the right strings, and Jake is just like, it's not clicking for him. Like, Jake starts putting the pieces together later on in the movie, and you're just like, oh my god, like, this guy seems unstoppable. How can we stop him? He's too good. I cannot overstate that Training Day is one of the best movies ever made. And most of it is because of just how well written of a villain this guy is. He is this movie's a masterpiece. This movie's a masterpiece. But that's it. That's for me. What do you guys think?
Honestly, I'm glad that out of the two of us, you made that video and you had something to say because, how do I say this without pissing anyone off? I've never seen Training Day because for the longest time, I swear I thought this movie was written by David Ayer, and I swore off David Ayer after what he said about Suicide Squad. But I was wrong. It's Anton Fuqua who did this movie, not David Ayer. So
David Ayer wrote it.
Well, fuck David Ayer. Because
no, I implore you, Sebastian, please watch it. Make this movie the exception.
Don't worry, I'm gonna see it. I will see it eventually. I will see it, I promise. It's just, even though I haven't seen it, part of this movie lives so much in infamy because a lot of its lines have become iconic in cinema. Like, everything from, King Kong ain't got shit on me! Like,
yes.
Like, everyone talks about lines like those. They never bring up poo butt ass, surprisingly. I wonder why that is.
Oof.
Yeah. You're telling me David Ayer wrote this? I completely believe it. But I do agree with everything that you talked about when it came to Alonzo. This was easily one of the most messed up villains I've ever heard about, and I can only think of one that came close to being as terrifying as him. I'm not gonna divert the attention away from it, but the way that you described this character, it reminded me a lot of Vincent from the movie Collateral, who was played by Tom Cruise, and both of these characters have such a charisma to them that even though you know they're the villain, you can't help but not sort of sympathize, but you can't help but want to see where they go, even if where they go, shit is gonna go wrong for everybody. And when it comes to characters like this, it really takes a strong sense of direction to make a despicable character such as this into one that you can not only, look up to and also root for, but also cannot get enough of. I know a lot of people who cannot get enough of Denzel Washington in this movie, both because of his performance and also because of the character and how completely terrifying he can get. because I've seen Denzel Washington when he's at his scariest, and this is definitely one of them.
I cannot overstate enough. He continuously surprised me throughout this entire movie. Just when I thought that his character couldn't get any more unpredictable, I was just like, whoa. And I already said, at times it seems like this guy is just plain unstoppable. Like he's OP. Like his intelligence and just the way that he executes his plan is just so unpredictable. You feel like almost helpless watching this movie, and at the same time, it's just so brilliant.
It really is one of those movies where you're going into it knowing that the bad guy is pretty much impossible to face off, but you also want to see just how strong he can get.
Mm-hmm.
Chrome, I'm sorry, it looks like we were rambling on here. Did you have anything that you'd like to add?
Nah. I've never seen it either, so I'm satisfied. I'm good. Don't mind me. I'm just trying to get out of these restraints. So y'all just keep talking.
Oh,
Let's turn our backs to her while we're at it.
Yeah, how cute she thinks she's gonna get away from them.
Yeah, don't worry about it. But no, listen. I cannot here's the thing too, because one of the best parts about Alonzo in Training Day is just what makes him so strong and such an intimidating villain is also ultimately what causes his downfall at the end of the film. And I'm not going to tip it because I actually want you guys to actually see it. And Sebastian has kind of already seen how the movie turns out because he saw my analysis video.
Oh yeah.
But what I can say is that it's brilliantly written because it doesn't take away from any of the characters in the movie, and it's so perfectly executed. The build up to it, the way it all goes down, and ultimately what it means for all of the characters and the message that it sends, which I think is Training Day is not just a great movie, it's also, I think, an important movie, especially for the times that we're living in now, obviously. Once again, I won't tip it, but please, this is a movie that you cannot forget about, and it'd be hard to forget about this movie for sure.
Absolutely.
Cool. Heck yeah.
Oh my goodness.
And that's all I got. What do you guys think?
Well, like you mentioned, man, everything about Alonso's just fantastic, and this entire movie is one that I do genuinely want to check out, despite my reservations on David Ayer being a terrible human being. But I will definitely be checking it out, and I'm hoping that it is as good as you say it is, which I believe that it might actually be just as so, because I don't think I've ever seen Denzel Washington given a bad performance, even when his performance, while good, got overshadowed by a Viola Davis. Yeah, I'm sorry, but if there's the only force that can possibly take down a big, massive black force like his is an even more massive black force, and only Viola Davis could have done that in the movie Fences. But that's a discussion for another day. So, I think that's pretty much all we have to offer today. What did you guys think about today's episode?
It was fun. I am really happy to come back here sometime. Just please don't kidnap me. That's really not necessary. And I'm gonna go see what fish I can find in the lake.
Alright, there's a knife under your desk. Just use it and you'll be able to free yourself. But before you do so...
Why'd you put it there?
Because...
That's a little silly.
Because
Why go...
Honey, I'm fucking insane.
Your brain cells aren't doing too well. It's the lake next door, bud. You gotta move locations.
I don't know if you know.
Diego, help me out here.
I don't
know. I just wanted to ask something of you, Chrome. If you see a couple of arms in there, please bring them back.
What?
They're mine.
Unfortunately, you're gonna find a couple. You have any idea how difficult it is to find real estate out here on the Wasteland? It's not easy. Honestly,
what do you mean it's a wasteland?
It was difficult enough. It was difficult enough getting It was difficult enough just getting duct tape just to be able to tie you up to that chair you're sitting on.
Well, I mean, yeah. Well, that's just an oversight, man. That's just you not using your eyeballs.
I don't have eyeballs anymore. They're both prosthetics.
Oh yikes! Well, in that case, I'm gonna go before he can't see me.
Well, before I can't see you any further, I would like to thank everyone for watching this. I apologize that we had to delay the episode up until today, but I think things happen by accidents can often cause good things. I don't know what the quote is, but you know what? Thank you so much for watching, and if you like what we see here and you would like to see more, then go ahead and check out our YouTube channel, and don't forget to check out our Patreon page for bonus content and exclusive rewards. I'm Sebastian.
Find me on Twitch.
I will be linking her Twitch onto the description, and you can check out her content. And also remember to check out Diego's video on Training Day, which is definitely worth checking. As always, I'm Sebastian from Cinemageddon Reviews, signing out, and I'll see you on the Wasteland.
Well, bye.